Hey everyone, Note 6.9 are on applications of trigonometry, and we're going to look at applications of trig using right triangles, sine law, cosine law. Everything's going to be mixed together. So, steps to solving trig word problems. The first thing that we need to do is read the problem carefully and underline keywords or highlight them. Step 2 says to determine what is given in the problem and what you need to find out. And I want you to add on right here that you have to draw a picture, because in order to be able to figure out what we know and what we need to know, we have to draw a picture, okay? And then we would use the information given to find the unknown. But sometimes you have to calculate the value of something else. So there's sometimes going to be an intermediate step before you can calculate the value that you are asked to find. All right, let's go ahead and try it. All right, so in number 1, it tells us that 2 airplanes leave an airport and the angle between their flights is 40 degrees. An hour later, one plane has traveled 300 kilometers while the other one has traveled 200 kilometers. So how far apart are the 2 planes to the nearest kilometer? So if you look right here, we have our airport. This is our airport right here. And it says that 2 planes are flying with an angle of 40 degrees in between. So we know that this right here is going to be this 40-degree angle. And then it says an hour later, one plane has traveled 300 kilometers. So this right here will be 300 kilometers. And then the other one has traveled 200 kilometers. So I'll put this as 200 kilometers. And it asks us to find out how far apart are the 2 planes to the nearest kilometer. So we want to find out this distance right here. So we will call this x. And if you notice right here, the information that's given to us is 2 sides with the included angle. Okay, so every time we have 2 sides with the included angle, we're going to use the cosine law. So I'm going to call this angle A, which means that this is side A. I'll call this B, which means that this is side B. And then I'll call this C, which is side C over here. So we want to solve for side A. So remember, cosine law will be A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2bc times the cosine of A. Okay, so, but I'm going to isolate the A first. So I'm going to square root both sides. And now I'm going to fill in all of my information here. So I'm going to say A is equal to B squared, which is 300, plus C squared, which is 200, minus 2 times B times C. So I'm going to do 2 times 300 times 200 multiplied by the cosine of angle A, which we know is 40 degrees. And to be honest, I'm just going to type this whole thing into my calculator. So I have got the square root of 300 squared plus 200 squared minus 2 times 300 times 200 times the cosine of angle C, which is 40 degrees. So this right here gives me 195. And it does ask us to round this to the nearest kilometer. So here we're going to say that this is 195 kilometers. Okay, so here we can say, therefore, the 2 planes are 195 kilometers apart. And that's the answer to number 1. Oh, all right, and number 2, while walking to school, you pass a barn with a silo. Looking up to the top of the silo, you estimate that the angle of elevation is about 14 degrees. And then it says you continue walking and find that you were 40 meters from the silo. Using the information and our knowledge of trig ratios, calculate the height of the silo. Okay, so I want to know, what is the height of the silo going to be? So let's draw a picture of what's going on. We're walking And then at some point in time, we notice that we're walking towards a silo. And at some point in time, we realize that the angle of elevation to the silo is going to be 14 degrees. And because the silo is upright, this is a right angle. You continue walking and find that you are 40 meters from the silo. So from this angle to the silo, we know is 40 meters. Use the information and our knowledge of trig ratios to calculate the height of the silo. So this is what I want to find out. So we know that we have a right triangle, which means we're not going to use sine law or cosine law. We're either going to use Pythagorean theorem or we are going to use trig ratios. Now, we only use trig ratios if I'm given angles and sides, which I am given. And I only use Pythagorean theorem if I'm given two sides and I'm trying to find the third side, which is not what we have here. So we're going to use trig ratios. So if 14 degrees is what's given to me, this x is the opposite and this 40 is the adjacent. So we're going to use SOHCAHTOA to determine which ratio we're going to use. And TOA is what we want. We've got opposite and adjacent. So we're going to use tangent. So here we're going to say the tangent of our 14-degree angle is going to be equal to the opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 40. And in order to solve for x, all we have to do here is multiply both sides by 40. So x is going to equal 40 times the tan of 14. Let's type that into our calculator. So we'll type in 40 times the tan of 14, and I end up getting 9.97. So we'll round this to the nearest whole number, so we'll say it is 10 meters tall. So therefore, the height of the silo is 10 meters. And we are done with this question right here. All right, this next one's a tricky one. It says that Matt measures the angle of elevation of the peak of a mountain as 35 degrees. Okay, Susie, who is 1,200 feet closer on a straight level path, measures the angle of elevation as 42 degrees. Okay, and we want to figure out how high the mountain is. So let's go ahead and draw a picture of what's going on. So we've got our mountain right here. We want to figure out how high this mountain is. So this is going to be our x right here, okay? And it says that Matt measures the angle of elevation to be 35 degrees. So if I draw this picture in right here, we have a right triangle, and we know that Matt's angle of elevation is going to be 35 degrees. But then there's Susie, who is 1,200 feet closer. So she's closer to the mountain right here, and she sees this angle of elevation as 42 degrees. So this right here would be 42 degrees. And we also know that this is 1,200 feet. Okay? And we want to use this information to find the height of the mountain. So this might feel like we don't have that much information, but we do. We have a good amount of information right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at this triangle right here. And I'm going to actually redraw it so we can kind of zoom in on what's going on here. So in this triangle, if you notice, we have a side in common with the other triangle, which is this side right here. So this side is in common with the triangle on the left, the purple triangle, and then this triangle on the right here. So that side is going to help me out quite a bit. I'm going to call this side y, okay? And we know that this is 1,200. And we know that this is 35 degrees right here. Now, I need another piece of information for me to be able to do anything here because I don't have a right triangle. I don't have a pair of information, a matching pair. So I do know, though, that this right here was 42 degrees. So if this was 42 degrees, that means that this angle out here has to be 180 minus 42. So this angle would be 138 degrees. I still don't have a matching pair though, because the only side length that I know is this 1200. So I need to know this angle up here. But I can figure out this angle up here because this angle up here would be 180 minus the 35 plus the 138. So this would be 180 minus 173. So this would be 7 degrees. So we know that this angle up here is 7 degrees. Okay, just a quick note, we also know that this exterior angle is equal to the sum of the two remote interior angles. So I could have also just done 42 minus 35 and I also would have gotten 7 degrees. Okay. That's a grade 9 topic, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. So the first thing I need to do is find out what y is going to be. So I have a matching pair right here. This 7 degree angle matches with this 1200 right here. And then I want to solve for y with this 35 degree angle right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up right here. So I'm going to say y over the sine of 35 is going to be equal to the sine, is going to be equal to 1200 over the sine of 7 degrees. So that's the first thing I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply to solve this. So I would get y times the sine of 7 is equal to 1200 times the sine of 35. So now to solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 7. So I get 1200 sine of 35 over the sine of 7. Okay, so y right here is going to be approximately equal to, I'm going to go ahead and go to my calculator and type that in. So I get 1200 times the sine of 35 all divided by the sine of 7. So this right here would give me 5,647.783966. I'm not going to round my answer quite yet. But now I need to use that information to solve for x. So if you notice here in my right triangle, I now know side length y right here. So step number 2 is to solve for x. And this is the opposite, this is the hypotenuse, so I would use sine. So I would say sine of 42 is equal to x over this number, 5,647.783966. Multiply both sides by that number. And that's going to be times the sine of 42. And I get approximately. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I want to deal with numbers that haven't been rounded. So I can just use my answer, use ANS. So I clicked on this answer button right here. So I can click on answer and then I'm going to multiply that by the sine of 42. And that gives me this answer right here, which is 3,779. Okay, so this right here is equal to 3,779 meters. So we can say here, therefore, the mountain is 3,779 meters high. And we are done with this question. For number 4. It says, find the height of the cliff shown to the nearest meter. So I want to know how high up this cliff is right here. So I'm going to call this x. But in order for me to be able to solve anything in this right triangle, I need information from this triangle right here. So I'm going to use that triangle to help me out. And the side that's in common is this side right here. So I'm going to call this side, side y. Okay, so we need to find side y first, but I don't have, in order for me to do this triangle that I see right here, I can't use Pythagorean theorem or trig ratios because it's not a right triangle. So I either have to use sine law or cosine law. And now I would use sine law if I have a matching pair, and I'd use cosine law if I have either 3 sides, which I don't, or I would use cosine law if I have 2 sides and an angle that's included, which I also don't. But I also don't have a matching pair. But I do because I know this angle right here. I can figure out what this angle up here is going to be. So let's go ahead and calculate this angle right here. So to find this angle right here, so I'm going to call this angle 1 To find the measure of angle 1, I'm going to do 180 minus the sum of 62 plus 50. So I would say that it is 180 minus 112. So I would end up getting 68 degrees. So now I can use that information with this y and this 50 to solve for y. So I can say right here, I guess this is step 1, this is step 2. I could say y over the sine of 50 is equal to 160 over the sine of 68. Now to cross multiply, I would get y sine of 68 is equal to 160 sine of 50, and then I would divide both sides by sine of 68. So I end up getting y is equal to approximately 160 times the sine of 50 over the sine of 68, and I get 132. Here, I can say that y is approximately equal to 132, but I don't want to round yet because this isn't my final answer. So I'm going to go out a few digits. So 132.1928874. That doesn't mean that this is the exact answer because there's more digits after that 4, but our calculator went that far, and I think that's sufficient for us to be able to figure out what to do here. So now we are going to use this right triangle right here to help us solve for y. So we're given angle 33 degrees. We know the y. Sorry, I meant to say to help us solve for x. We know the y is the opposite. We know the x is the adjacent. So step number 3 is to use tangent because that's the ratio that uses opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to say the tangent of 33 is equal to x over y. Multiply both sides by y, and I end up getting y tan of 33 is equal to x, where we know that y is this number right here. So this ends up becoming, I'm going to take my answer, and I'm going to multiply that by the tan of 33, the tangent of 33, and I end up getting approximately 85.8. And then when you round this to the nearest whole meter, you end up getting 86 meters. So here we can say, therefore, the height of the cliff is 86 meters. And that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in class. Bye.